Thank you, Josh. It is good to be with you today. We are now officially into summer, and I know that seeing you routinely is not really going to happen over the next 8 weeks, so I'll take what I can get, and I'm glad to be here with you. And I also want you to know we apologize for last week. If you showed up in the parking lot and saw a lot of cars leaving, it was a crazy day, and it was ultimately ironic for me because I felt like I had prayed more for this past Sunday than I have for any Sunday in the history of our meeting together. I was on vacation. I got up every morning, spent a couple hours, and I was praying for you, many of you by name, some of you just by faces. I was like, gosh, I don't know, but the mean-looking one in the back, God be with him. But I was praying for you by name and places and asking God to do great things, to resurrect lives, to bring revival, for God to move in particular ways in your homes and families. I felt so good about last Sunday. And then I get to Saturday, the day we were getting ready to come home, and I still had my time before we got on the road. And that morning I read in the book of Joshua this one wild moment in history in which Joshua prayed and needed God's guidance, and God allowed the sun to stand still for an entire day. And there's a little phrase at the end that I read. It says, "Never before and not since has God listened to the prayer of one man as he did on that day." And I highlighted it. I thought God, that's going to be me. That's my prayer. And then we showed up and we canceled church and a tornado came through. It was so bizarre. And so as I drove home last Sunday about this time, we packed up and went home. And I thought, okay, a new verse. Never before or since has God not listened to one man's prayer as he did not listen to Chad that day. And that was, what a crazy, crazy day it was. So I had a message planned, and you'll never hear it. It'll be all right. I'm sure 0 people are sad about it, but we'll talk about something different today. But I'm glad to be here, and that was our beginning of our summer. And for me, summertime is vacation, and vacation means the beach. And I know the beach is not everybody's thing. That's cool. But for me, it is ideal. I love the sand. I love the sun. I love the moon at night hitting the ocean. I love the sound of the crashing waves. I love being in it. I love looking for sharks. I love the whole deal. And every now and then I'll see one and everybody leaves and I stay in. I love everything about it. But I also know there's that first day, that first few hours really, where you show up and you've got to get to the water as fast as you can. You crash into the water's crashing back at you. Most people have that weird mandatory conversation about, ooh, the water's colder than I thought it would be. Like, I don't know why we talk about water temperature when we get there, but you have to say it. And then you get on into the water and you get the waves crashing. And for me, there's always that one droplet of water that hits the very center of my eyeball while I'm in there. But it's okay because I haven't been to the beach in a year and I'm willing to let it work its magic. I'm okay with that. But then after a few hours, or at least after a day, you get to the point where you're kind of tired of holding on to your sunglasses and holding up your pants and making sure that you're not embarrassed in the water. You're a little bit tired of having to spit out gallons of salt water, and you're a little tired of all the sunscreen that gets reapplied. And after a while, you're just ready to rest on your vacation. And there's a part of me that wants to get out in the waves and not have to jump and then jump. And then jump. I just want to rest. And so there's that space between the waves that gives you just a little peace, a chance to chill and just relax for a moment. And if you don't have that, if you're just constantly experiencing a barrage of breaking waves, you get tired. Maybe not physically, but just emotionally a little drained of it all. And it begins to even test your resolve to want to be at the water in the first place. And life has a way of doing the same thing. It comes at us with seasons and semesters and pressures and feelings and anxieties, and just wave after wave after wave. And if that's the case, you would think that all of us would do whatever we could to embrace that peace, that rest that's between the waves. So that when you get a chance to take a rest in this crazy whirlpool, wave pool of life, that you would embrace it. But we don't. There's something within us that struggles to relax. There's something wrong with our will to chill. Like we just don't want to chill out at all. And you know this because you have one day where you have something or nothing on your schedule and you immediately begin to find stuff to do. You want to have another conversation, plan another project, binge another show. You got to look at another site. You've got to look at some more comments. You got to post another picture. It's just, there's always something going on for most people. And yet we complain about how tired we are and how chaotic life is and how we just want a break. And then you get a break and you sit on your couch with your laptop and your phone and your food and your snacks and your pet and the television on, and you're looking across the room at some other people and trying to find reasons not to talk to them. And just so much is happening. And we never, ever chill. We won't relax. If you've ever been driving at night and you found yourself nodding off as you're driving and you realize you're a danger to yourself and to those around you, you begin to do whatever you can to stay awake, and you're guzzling incredible and unhealthy amounts of caffeine, and the seat beside you is just rock star after monster after rock star after monster, all of the energy drinks. You stick your head out the window and you're turning on music you don't like and blaring it just to keep yourself awake. And that is really a picture of life for most of you. There's just too much going on, but you have made friends with it and you're okay with it. And yet we find in some of the rules that God gave his people a chance to have an excuse just to chill for a bit. So we're going to this summer take a look at the summer rules, the rules that God gave his people when they were being formed as a nation. They were a group of people that were held together by a promise to their ancestor, but they had no government. They had no official place to be. They were a nation just in the sense of God had a promise for them. And then the time came for them to formulate, if you will, come together and be an official place and get ready to actually have their own lands. And in doing that, God gave them 10 rules. And one of those rules was to rest. In Exodus chapter 20, verse 8, God gave their leader Moses this word, and Moses shared it with the people. And it says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." So of all the rules that we're going to see this summer, that is probably the least offensive. Like, I don't know if we're ever bent out of shape over the breaking of this rule, yet there are others that we read and we're thinking, yeah, that's pretty obvious and that's a deal, and I've been affected by that, I've been affected by this. And very few of us feel like we've ever really been affected by this command or the abuse or the neglect of this command. So why is rest so important? If God's only going to give his people 10 rules to begin with, why does he use one of them as rest? Was it he had 9 good ones, but he felt like 9 commandments just didn't ring well, and so I'll just come up with something else. I'll just talk about worship. And I don't think so. I think this is just as important to him as all of the others. So why is it a big deal for us? And why do we struggle with it? I think we struggle to honor this idea of a Sabbath, a time where once a week we carve out to focus on God. I think we struggle with it because there are a few misperceptions and lies that we've bought in, and I want to share a few things that might help us come out of the dark with that. The first is this: clocking out, is not the same as closing up. Clocking out is not the same as closing up. When you clock out of your job, there is a small part of you, whether you admit it or not, because some of you are sitting near your bosses, whether you admit it or not, there's a small part of you that wants things not to work as well when you're not working. Just because you know it's true. There's a small part that it's real. Now, we don't want things to fall apart, but at least not publicly, but we kind of want things to not work as well. So that when we leave, it's almost as if, well, closed for the day. I mean, you can't do anything because I'm not here. And so we look at our lives and think, if I'm not working, if I'm not doing this thing, if I'm not planning this, if I'm not present for that, representing that, cooking that, organizing this, commenting here, posting that, answering that, if I'm not doing those things, then they're just not going to get done or get done well, and everything's going to fall apart. So I just have to stay on all the time. I can't take a break, because if I miss something, ultimately it's going to be my fault, because it might fall apart. And one of the difficult things you and I have to eventually come to grips with is that God wants us, but God doesn't need us. He wants us, He loves us, He's called us, He's chosen us, and He certainly works through us, but He doesn't have to have us. And that is a hard thing for you and me to understand. In the mid-90s, the University of Tennessee thought it had its answer to the next championship. They got the golden boy. Archie Manning's son, Peyton, came to be the quarterback at Tennessee. And so for a few years, especially 95, 96, 97, there was this thought that, okay, if we're going to win another national championship, it's going to come now. And the golden boy played well, should have won a Heisman, but anyway, he played really, really well, had an incredible legacy. Everybody watching had a feeling he was going to be a big deal in the NFL. Most people had a feeling he might even make it to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. All those things turned out to be true, but he didn't bring home the championship. So after he left school, fans of UT, myself included, were thinking, well, time to rebuild and find our next Peyton Manning. And then lo and behold, T. Martin shows up, quarterback next year, wins a national championship. And I don't know that Peyton was sitting at home in Indianapolis thinking, I kind of hope they lose, because they, I don't think that at all. I mean, he bleeds orange. He's proven that. But there had to be a part of him going, that was supposed to be me. And there's a part of all of us that wants to feel like, if I take my hand off the wheel, it's going to crash. I'm needed here. I'm necessary here. And the truth is, you were created with great value, and you are very important, and you play a great role in the story of God. But He doesn't have to have any of us to do what He wants to do. And Moses tried to help the people understand this a little earlier. We sang about this just a moment ago, and about the waters holding back. And there was a moment in which Moses was leading God's people. They had not gotten to this place called Sinai, where he would get the 10 rules, the 10 commandments. But they're standing at the edge of the water. The Egyptian army's coming after them. People are losing their minds, thinking, what are you doing? Why would you bring us out here to die? We could have stayed back there, and all that was happening. There were certainly men trying to problem solve and figure things out, thinking, well, maybe if we build this and build that, maybe half the people can be saved, and maybe we all grab this rope, and then others thinking, I'll just grab a sword. I'll go down, but I'll fight as many as I can and try to preserve as many. They were all trying to figure stuff out. And then Exodus chapter 14, verse 13, Moses told the people, don't be afraid. Stand firm, and you will see the deliverance the Lord will bring you today. I love this line. The Egyptians you see today, you will never see again. The Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. And if you are a person of action, if that's what you do, like you're listening thinking, what kind of plan is that? You want me just to stand and expect the Lord to do this? I mean, He's given me hands, He's given me feet, He's given me weapons for a reason. What's going on? You just stand still. And as they stood there, and as Moses relied on the Lord, God parted the seas. They went across, the waves came back in, and ultimately they never saw those Egyptians again, just as God said. But that lesson, just to stop, to do nothing, to be still, is a challenge, because we want to feel like we're not just a part of it, but we're a necessary part of what it is that God is doing. In Psalm chapter 46, verse 10, there's a verse that says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. Not be quiet and know that I am God, but be still. Stop what you're doing. Stop trying to figure it out, manipulate it, work it out yourself, and allow me to do this thing. Because I know for certain that God can do more on your day off than you can accomplish on the 6 days that you're at work. And God says, carve out that space, as difficult as it may be. As much as you feel like you might be losing in this moment, carve out that space and let me do my work. Because just because you decide to step away from the counter doesn't mean we're going to lose business. I've got this. You're still not the boss. You're the employee. This is my place. This is my house. I'll do my work. The second thing I think we need to grasp is a silly phrase, but I hope it sticks with you, at least in your mind. Pie charts are not for people. When we look in the mirror, sometimes we see ourselves as this compartment of sorts where we have a physical part, we have a spiritual part, we have an emotional and a mental part. And some of the parts might be going well and some of them might not be going well. This might be a strength for us and this might be a weakness over here. But God does not view us in that way. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all of that works together. God wants us to be whole, to be one. So the idea that I could be spiritually strong and physically weak is not really a concept that we find in Scripture. So we have this command to rest because God knows we need that. And if I am physically unwell, and we can all define unwell however we want to, but if I'm physically unwell, not taking care of this, then eventually I'm going to be spiritually unwell. They work together. Mentally, emotionally, all of it. If you're not taking care of yourself physically, it's going to affect your perspective, it's going to affect your confidence, it's going to affect your emotions, and it's ultimately going to affect your posture and your attitude when you approach God. It all works together. So God was saying, if you don't chill out, you're going to burn out. So let me help you here. I am going to set aside a day that I am forcing you to rest, to step back, to carve out and just focus on who I am, what I've done, what I'm doing, what I'm speaking to you, a time for you to step away, lay down the tool and let me take care of you. Now, the primary thing is not, well, which day are we talking about, Saturday or what the church did in Resurrection Sunday? And are we talking about carving out any day, or does it have to be the same day that my neighbor carves out because I work on Sunday so they can be off? Listen, we can do this all day. And that's what the religious leaders called Pharisees did all the time in Jesus' time. It's more about you and me stepping back and saying, okay, let me not get stuck in, am I doing this right or wrong? The question is, am I honoring this understanding and this thing that God's asked me to do, to carve out, to set apart some time with my spiritual family, to focus in on what God is doing and what he has done, who he is, and allowing me to have this space to worship. Jesus once was with his disciples and they were going through a field and their hands were, they're just touching stuff. They're a bunch of men. They can't keep their hands off stuff. So they're just going through the fields and they're just touching things. And they grabbed some heads of wheat. And some of the Pharisees, these religious leaders who were always trying to figure out, are you doing the Sabbath right? Are you doing that right? They watched and they said, Jesus, why are you allowing your guys to break one of the big 10 here? I mean, they are technically harvesting with their hands as they walk through. We know that's against the commands, and so what's going on here? And Jesus told them in Mark chapter 2, verse 27, he said, the Sabbath is made for man. The man was not made for the Sabbath. In other words, the Sabbath is a gift that God gave creation. God did not have rules and then just need to create something to keep his rules. It wasn't about the rules. It was about the creation. But God said, I'm going to give them rules that will protect them, that will set them apart, and that ultimately will help them know who I am and understand my character. And part of that is them being forced to take some time away, to breathe, to chill for a time. And then the third thing that I think we need to grasp is that rest wakes us up. People often think they need sleep when what they actually need is rest. Some of you got 12 hours of sleep last night. You're about 30 minutes into this day already. You just kind of rolled in. And yet you're tired. You're worn out. It's been a long week and you're not ready to start the next one. Sleep and rest don't always work together. In fact, many of us are sleepwalking our way through life, and we're not even seeing what's in front of us. And some of you are needing to hear a fresh word from God today, and you're needing some encouragement in your lives. You've taken some steps of faith, but you feel like you're by yourself. You feel like you're alone. You feel like no one's on your team. No one's behind you. You're doing this thing all alone. And you're needing that bit of encouragement, but you're not finding it because you're just so busy, and you're in the face of everything and you can't see anything. And yet Scripture says, no eye has seen and no mind has imagined what God has prepared for those who love him. Well, if that's the case, if God's dreaming up these dreams for me, how do I get in on that? Well, you're not going to get in on it if you don't take time to get away, to carve out that space, to respect that Sabbath command that God's given you so that you can regroup. So you can see your life for what it really is and hear God's voice and dream God's dreams for you. You have to be at times alone to experience that. There was a man named Elijah that lived after Moses lived. And he wasn't the leader of God's people the way Moses was. He was a prophet. And after some talking about what God was doing and what his plans were, he fell into the bad side, if you will, of the current king and queen. And they decided they wanted to have him killed. So he was on the run. He's by himself in the middle of nowhere. He sits down under a little tree and says, God, I want to die. Just take my life. I don't want to be here anymore. And so he sleeps, and God sends an angel, a messenger, and that messenger cooks a meal for him and then wakes him up and says, I want you to go to Sinai. God's going to speak to you there. Sinai was where Moses was when he had the Ten Commandments. So we're circling back to the beginning of this. He goes back to Sinai. He travels for over a month. He's exhausted. He gets to Sinai, and he knows that the last time someone was there and heard from God, it was a big deal. So he waits and he hears thunder, but God doesn't give him anything at all, any direction, any encouragement. He sees and hears fire, and there's nothing at all there. There's an earthquake, nothing there. And then God stops and whispers to Elijah. He says, you're not alone. You're not alone in this thing, but I needed to get your attention because I want you to go back. Here's the task. Here's the person that's going to help you. And besides all that, there are 7,000 people who have been in hiding, who have refused to bow down to this false god. And they're just waiting on a leader, and you're the leader. But he doesn't get any of that if he's never in that spot where he's stuck and he's alone and he's afraid for his life. But it was in that time when you heard God's voice most clearly. And I know some of you fear being alone, and you hate the idea of being on your own, and being in silence. Some of you can't even deal with silence. You've always got some noise on or something just to not have to hear the voices in your head. But at some point, you've got to be willing to stop, carve out that space and say, God, I'm listening. You got my attention. If you've got plans for me, I want to know what those are. If you're dreaming dreams for me, I want to have those dreams too. And so I'm going to lay down what I'm doing. I'm going to stop what I'm doing just for a time and trust that you are going to take care of it. You keep the shop running. Because ultimately, you're not responsible for the outcome of anything. You're responsible for your obedience. God assumes the responsibility for every outcome in your life. He just asks that you be responsible for your own obedience. And in a strange turn of events, God told his people, not just don't kill each other, and don't be unfaithful to one another, don't lie to each other, but you also need to rest. Just doesn't fit in with anything else, but God knew what he was doing. And he knows what you can handle and what you can't. And he says, I've got great plans for you, but you're not going to be able to grasp them if you can't discipline yourself to sit back and spend time alone with me. So what is honoring the Sabbath? It's definitely more than a day on our calendar. It's more than just coming to a church service. It's you prioritizing that space, that sacred space in your life where it's just you and God, where it's you allowing him to speak to your heart and saying, I cannot let go of this. This is my time. This is my space. And I know that this is a part of it, but it's even more than this. And so my hope and my prayer is not just that you get comfortable and find your seat here at the bridge, although I love that you have found your seat. But it's beyond that, that I'm here with my people to meet God. I'm here with my people to hear God speak to me. Because I can't accomplish in 6 days all that God can in this one, and so I offer him this. Now, I want to close with this because there's one more reference to the Sabbath in the book of Hebrews that I love. Because this Sabbath thing is not just about this life and not just about the today. And in Hebrews chapter 4, verse 9, the author said, "There remains then a Sabbath rest for the people of God. For anyone who enters God's rest also rests from their works, just as God did from his. Let us therefore make every effort to enter that rest so that no one will perish by following the example of disobedience." Now, he's not talking about your time to worship with your church family. He's saying there is a Sabbath rest for your soul. There is a restlessness inside of you that will never be quenched outside from this Sabbath rest from God, and it only is found when you come home. He said, be very careful that when you're disobedient, you don't miss out on this. And if you're not a follower of Jesus, you're going to have that restless soul for the rest of your life. You're going to wonder why it is that as busy as you are, you cannot find fulfillment. Why, as much as you read, as much as you do, as much as you watch, as much as you speak, as much as you listen, as many places as you go, it's still not enough. And there is a Sabbath rest for your soul. And so I simply want to extend to you the invitation that Jesus himself and his words extended to all of us. He said, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened." He said, if when you come to me, you'll find a yoke that is easy and light. And ultimately, you'll find rest. He invites us in to find rest. And so if you are guilty of having a restless soul, just filling it with as much as you can and not seeming to get the answer, I'm telling you, it's a Sabbath rest for your soul that you're missing. And I encourage you today to call out to Jesus in this moment and say, God, I'm ready. I'm tired. I'm fatigued. I'm tired of trying to make sense of this, and I come home today.